Manage that with, I mean, obviously you had a heavy workout load with Stanford, the football team, and later the baseball team, and your schoolwork. How did you manage that?
The most important, aspect as I go around and speak, with talking about asthma is that really knowing the resources that you have around, and as a football player, especially a football player at Stanford, have tremendous assets, tremendous resources. So what was important was first for me to recognize that I had asthma. That wasn't too difficult, but then be willing to go along with the doctors and training staff to find out what is it I was going to need. To be able to identify what was the medicines that I was going to need, and also know the frequency that I was going to have to use it. So being able to have a plan, and I think that's what allowed me to be able to continue playing, football and baseball, was being willing to find a plan. And so much of football is exactly that, is that we have to be willing to adjust. We have to see it not for how we want it to be, but for what it is, and then figure out how we can get it to what we want it to be, and be willing to adjust. So sat down with the folks at Stanford, and we kind of looked over what is the best plan. But again, that's not that didn't change throughout my time at Stanford, but at particular times that was the best course.
Did you ever have any doubts at that point?
Absolutely, doubt. I think probably the most doubt really came my junior year, and so my asthma, it seemed as if it wasn't progressing or getting worse, but for some reason I was having difficulty breathing, and it was really at the beginning of games is when it was the worst. And initially, I thought it was more of nerves, more of just something very simple that was kind of exacerbate my asthma, where I was able to breathe better later in the game. But ended up finding out after my junior year, and it was really difficult to breathe later in the season. Was I actually had enlarged tonsils and adenoids. So in addition to asthma, I had enlarged tonsils and adenoids. So basically, was just absolutely choking and getting very little air. But was able to get the tonsils and adenoids removed, and now kind of that plan, the asthma plan, kind of came back into play, where I just absolutely felt amazing afterwards.